training class. To begin this class, I am going to start by showing you some of the reports that are out there now. This is constantly changing. A lot of these reports have been out there for a long time. A lot of you probably can make good use of reports that are already out there with some minor changes instead of having to feel like you need to write your own report. So with that being said, I'm just going to kind of give an overview of some of the key reports, in my opinion, that are very useful. So to get to business objects, you need to click on the report link from the top menu and go to custom. When that happens, it's going to open a new browser window. Now keep in mind, this browser window is tied to your instance of APIMS. So if you were in this screen for a long time, you have to remember occasionally to come back here and click on a link to keep your session active. Okay, so I know that's something that can sometimes bite people where they'll end up losing some of their work because they forget and it times out. All right. So when you come into business objects, you should all be familiar with this screen. You've got the basic menu items up across the top. You've got them here. If you have any favorites, you can have them starred and they will show up here. And I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. You've got any of the recent documents that you've run. And then down here, you've got the Web Intelligence link that will take you into Web Intelligence. Okay, so that's for if you're going to write your own report. Okay. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to go to folders. And I'm going to show you how to find some of the key reports. And we're going to start with the facility power utilization report. So in business objects, you've got a personal folders icon here, and this is for all the reports that maybe you wrote. Nobody but you can see the things in the personal folders, okay? And then you've got the public folders. Now, underneath public folders, there's several different options, but you want to go public and then public APIMS reports. We're going to start out in the PMO reports area. However, do understand that if you have installation specific reports that people from your installation team have written, you can see them under your installation. And anybody that has access to that installation can see that folder and those reports. So for example, those are the Aviano reports, okay? And then there is the Wild Wild West. Everyone has access to this, and this is where you can share reports back and forth between people that may have different access than you. Or it can be a temporary place to save a report that you're having trouble with if you need to reach out for assistance, okay? But we're going to start in the PMO reports area. Now, because we're going to look at the facility power utilization report, that's going to be underneath the facility power folder. And if you click on that, all of the reports for facility power will show up here in your list. There's a description over here. Now you can see that I have a star next to this one. This is the facility power utilization report that everyone's familiar with. To mark a report as favorites to get it to show up in your home screen, you can click on the ellipses. And then we're going to remove it from my favorites real quick, just so you can see it, but it will mark as a favorite. Once that happens, you will see the star there. And if I was to return to my home button here, it would then show up on my page here, and I can simply click it and have it run. Okay. I highly recommend you use the favorites button. It's very helpful in navigating some of the commonly used reports. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to the home page and we're going to go back to the folders and I'll show you some of the other reports that are out there. All right, within facility power, there's a lot of very helpful reports out here. I suggest you read the description and go look at them. I'm not going to go in depth, but the facility power utilization report is something that you need to know about. The Rice NESHAP compliance report is also a beneficial report, as it'll let you know some of the timeframes for maintenance and things like that. So it's going to let you know when the last oil change was, when the air filter inspection needed to be done, and belt and hose. Now, with all of these reports, as you can see, this is not necessarily the data. Well, actually, this one does automatically refresh. But one of the things that Business Objects doesn't do always is refresh the report when you come into it. So the first thing you need to do when coming into a report is click the refresh button, okay? And so the refresh button is just this arrow circle up here, okay? Now, if I want to close this report, I can come up here and I can see any of my currently utilized reports, and I can pin them or I can close them. So I'm going to close these reports. But like I said, there's a lot of good generator reports out there if you need help with that. The next folder I want to go into is air quality. There's a suite of reports under AEI quality assurance. And I'm not going to open all these because some of them are big reports. But you've got your AEI collection and summary report. And actually, I'm going to show this one real quick. But for each source category, it's going to give you a summary of the process information, the equipment information, parameters, calculation methodology, and then provide a usage summary as well. This is a good baseline to look at when trying to review your data or update it on an annual basis. Now, this report is big because there's a lot of source categories that are involved. And so that's why when you come back to the folder view, there's multiple instances of this report. They are different, so they have different source categories, and that's indicated in the name. But that's a good use of a report to, check your data on an annual basis when you're getting ready to do updates. Another key report is the ESO data QA report. This allows for the quick QA/QC of processing your ESO consumption, finding out which processes came in, how you have your data structured with the next hire process. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go into these because that's a whole different webinar on the QA/QC and how to use these reports. And hopefully we'll be having another one of those soon. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me, but I just want to let you know what is out there. There's also the process emission details report. This is going to show you how all of your emissions have been calculated. So it includes things like emission factors, algorithms, emission factor references, and consumption for everything that's run in a particular calculation. Okay, and then lastly, in this folder is a usage summary. This is going to allow you to review all of the usage that you've entered for a given time frame. It helps identify any outlier data and also lets you know which processes are active that you don't have usage documented for. Okay, so very useful when completing an AEI. All right. Now, the next folder that I want to look at is AEI quality control. And under this one, you've got a lot of different things. You've got a comparison of your emissions year to year. This can help also see if you have anything that has been miscalculated or any large fluctuations within your program. The next one is there's a PTE summary report. So you can compare PTE summaries from year to year, or you can provide a overall PTE summary to let you know like where you're at. It's a pretty handy report. And actually, I'll go look at it real quick. A lot of these include graphs if you need any type of metrics or anything like that. Okay. Let's go back to public folders. And talk about quality control. All right. The other one that is useful is the usage data year to year. This can help you identify why you might have fluctuations within your program. If you have any outlying usage that doesn't match your normal tempo. There's another one that talks about RegDoc and checklist. This will let you know what you have configured in those modules within the database. There's an inspection checklist summary report, and that will provide you all of your inspection checklists along with the history of what has been answered for those inspections and the most recently completed inspection. So you can see if you're up to date on your inspection tempo as well. And then lastly, there's a permit requirements by process and rug. This one can be very useful if you have the data configured. You can basically tell which permit conditions apply for any given process or group of processes. Okay. Any questions about the reports that are out there and available as canned reports? Has anybody been able to use these? Any questions about them?
Hey, Julie, this is Monty. You might want to hit on user levels and
Oh, okay.
how that impacts some of the reports when you're running them.
Yes. So there are different tiers of users in APIMS. If you're not sure what tier you are, you can come up to edit profile and it will tell you what tier you are. For those of you that have access to a single base, you're going to be what's considered a tier 3 user. Tier 3 users can only look at the data for the report that is assigned to them currently. Most reports are going to work well run as tier 3 reports. If you are a tier 2 user, that means you're going to see all of the installations within your ISS. Okay. So within your group of commands. So if I was in the West, I would see all of the West bases if I was a tier 2 user. Now, if you have your user set to tier 2 and you run some of these reports, they will have trouble and they will time out because some of these reports are a huge amount of data. So you need to be very careful about what level you are when running reports. And then tier 1, this is going to apply to people like AFCEC who are running enterprise reports. And those ones are, like I said, they can time out. So you have to be very careful and very filtered about what you're trying to pull because it is a large amount of data. Okay. And whatever your current setting is at the time when you run the report is what will get run. So right now I'm a tier 3 at Goodfellow. So if I was to hit the refresh button, it would only show me Goodfellow data. Okay. And with that being said, also the installation reports. So for example, Monty is an ISS, so he's got access to several different bases folders. I have tier 1 status, so I can see all of the folders. If you can't see your installations folder, you can request access from the help desk to make sure they do that. But you should, if you have access to that installation, you should have access to their folder with their reports. All right. Any questions about that? I know some of you fence to fence contractors have multiple installations. So just be aware of which base you're currently assigned to and what tier. That's the other thing. Not all of these reports necessarily have a filter on the base name when you refresh them. So make sure that you are cognizant of that and looking at the data with that in mind to make sure that you're not pulling something that you didn't mean to. Okay. Any questions about any of the canned reports or the pre-written reports that are out there?
Julie, you might want to just emphasize I know all the reports are built differently, but the input parameters, making sure that we refresh those up front and knowing how to identify what the input parameters are that you can adjust before you run the query. Over.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben. I'm one of Julie's coworkers. Apparently, she just had a little bit of a technical issue with her computer. So if you don't mind just sitting tight for a few minutes, see if she can reboot and come back.
Sorry
there
about
she
that. I am on a phone right now while my computer restarts. Unfortunately, Teams sometimes doesn't like my computer for some reason. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But Monty, what was your question again?
Yeah, I think the big thing is just going through maybe a couple of the canned reports and showing the different filters that you have to be
Oh.
aware of and how to identify what those input filters are before you run them.
Yeah, and we're going to go into that. I've got some, now that we're going to go into actually looking at the design and editing of the reports, I've got a few examples that I'm going to touch on here in just a second, where we're
Okay,
actually going to
awesome.
go take some existing reports and edit them and read what they're pulling so that we can determine if it's what we want in a report. So yeah, that was going to be the next thing. I was going to go into some sample exercises. So in APIMS, there's also in that PMO folder, all of the reports that I teach in the training class are out there for use as templates for people. I've compiled quite a few common reports that are useful to installations. The first one is just kind of a basic equipment and process association report. The next one is a air emission roll up by process and source category. We've got a 12-month rolling total usage report out there if people have that. There is a requirement to process report out there. There is I believe, a paint booth report. So there's a lot of the common requirements that are generic to a lot of installations are available out there. That you can find useful. So if you have a requirement that's pretty commonly seen in permits, there's probably a report out there that does it. Those training class reports are a good starting point. And that's what we're going to go over here in just a second is as soon as my computer gets back up, is how to go in and look at those and edit them. Once again, I apologize. I don't know why my computer just decided it didn't like me today. I guess that's Murphy's Law chiming in. Well, while I'm getting this back up, were there any other questions about the canned reports or anything that people have run into when using them?
Julie, it's Frank. Do we have any reports on just basic source identification?
Yes, so that AEI collection report is big and we'll do that for you. However, there is in that same folder just a active stationary sources report, and that'll pull all your active stationary sources along with any associated equipment. So I'm almost back up and running, and I'll show you that here in just a second. All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
All right, I am sharing my screen again. Once again, I apologize for the hiccup in that. But yes, if you go out to this folder, Frank, you can see once again, it's in the PMO reports, air quality. If you go to quality assurance, there is this active stationary sources with equipment report. And if I was to open that up, this is a good, just basic, this is the sources for my installation. As you can see, one of the other things too with this is you may scroll down and say, I only see storage tanks in this report, right? But one of the things that you need to look at is this won't always be shown down here. So if you think that there's more data to the report, there probably is, and you need to navigate down here and click the next button, okay? As you can see, this was last run on this date. And so this may or may not be the data. This is not the data for the base that I'm associated to. So the first thing you have to do when coming in is click the refresh button up here, okay? Now, to tell what this report is doing, when I come into this report, I do not own this report. This report was developed by somebody else, so I'm not allowed to make changes to it. So in order to make changes to this report, the first thing I need to do is come over here to design mode. So right now I'm just in reading mode. So if I click on design mode, then you can see my extra panels that those of you that have written reports are used to seeing. And the buttons up on top change. The navigate comes up here and you get a query button, okay? Now to tell what this query is pulling, I can click this edit query button up here. And this is what Monty was talking about. This tells me how the query was made, okay? So over here are all of the available fields that I could choose. These are all of the fields that have been included in my query. And these are the filters that have been applied. Okay, so let's say that I want to include my ESO processes. I may remove this filter by clicking the delete button, and then it's going to pull a different set of data, right? So if you use a report that's out there and you want to edit it, you can do that. Now, I own this report, so it's going to let me do that. But if you want to make a change to this report, the first thing you need to do is save it as and put it in your personal folders and give it a different name. Okay. Now, one thing that's kind of quirky about business objects is sometimes it's still holding on to that old report. So as a best practice, I recommend you close this report and then go open from scratch the one you just saved. So what was the name of this report again? Stationary sources, right? Or no, it was active. We'll find it. The other thing here is if you are like me and you forgot a report, or if you're looking for a particular report, you can come up here and search, and it will find all of the reports that match what you're looking for. Okay, so I didn't remember where I saved it, so I'm going to click here, and lo and behold, it's the report that I was looking for. Okay, so if you can remember the name, or if there's keywords and you're looking for a canned report that might be for engines or for compliance, you can use this search button up on top in order to try and find reports that are out there. Because I know with the folder structure and with the number of reports out there, there's a lot of stuff. Okay. Now, the thing that Monty was talking about is when I hit the refresh button, this is called a prompt, okay? And a lot of the reports that we deal with have prompts. And so when I come in here, it's holding on to the value from the last person that ran the report, right? But if I'm a tier 3 user at Goodfellow, I don't necessarily have access to this. So if I was to run the report now, I wouldn't get any data back. Okay. Because it's looking for this facility name, and this facility name does not exist in the data set that I'm looking at. So in order to do this prompt correctly, I'm going to want to clear out the prompt value, and I'm going to use that with the reset prompt values button. And then if I want to see what values are available to me, I can click this refresh button and it'll provide me with a new list of values. Okay. So now I can select 1 or 2 facilities as my needs are. So I'm just going to pick Goodfellow, and then I can click run. Once I do that, it's going to pull the data for the installation I'm looking at. Okay. Now, this is a good report and I like it, but I need to have the building number field, not the location number. Okay. So let's say that I really like this report, but it's not quite what I need, and I need to add something to it. One of the most frustrating things that people come across is that they say, well, I added the field to my query, but I don't see it in my report. So we're going to talk about that scenario right now. I don't know if that's happened to anybody, but I need to go edit my query. So once again, I'm going to go up to the edit query button. And as you can see here in my results objects, building number is not in here. So I can come up here and I can search for building number. And as you can see, there's a couple different options. Or if I don't want to do that, I can go to unique process and look for it manually like this. Now to click a field over, I can either double click it or I can use the shuttle box to move it over. Now, this is an important thing to understand in business objects. We are editing the query. The query is different than the report. Okay, so it's only going to put in the report what you tell it to. So the first step to doing this is to put it in the query. So I'm going to say run. When I do that, it's going to pull in the new data. It's going to give me a new prompt, and then it's going to give me new results. Now, what you're looking at here in this screen is not the query. You are looking at the report. Okay. This panel here is going to show you everything that's in your query that could potentially be in your report. Okay. Not everything from here needs to be included in here. Okay. This panel here is where you format your report. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? The difference between a query and a report? This query can be used for multiple reports. You can also use multiple queries in a single report. And so Business Objects sees them as 2 separate things. Okay. So now to add building number to my report, I can find the field here from my query, and I can click and drag it where I want it to show up in my report. Okay, so now that I've done that, you can now see that I have included building number in this report. So I've added a field to the report. Any questions about that? Does anybody need to see that again? Now, if I wanted to move it to a different place, I can simply click on it and drag it up to reorder the fields. Okay. Now the other thing too is these fields up here, these column headers have formatting completed on them, right? So if I wanted to match the formatting, there's a couple different ways I can do it. So to format this field, I want to click on it because I need to tell the database that I'm looking at this particular field. And I want to come up to this formatting area. So you look for the paintbrush. Okay. So now it knows that I'm formatting the table cell. And I can add a background color. I can add borders. If I come over to the font, I can change the text. I can format it how I want. And then here I can do auto fit and format those types of things. Okay. But I, for this one, want to use the same formatting as was in this field, right? And I don't want to have to go click on it to try and figure that out. So a quick way to do this is to come up and use the format painter. So I can copy the format, and then you can see that I'll have a little arrow by my mouse arrow, and then I can click on this field. When I do that, it's going to automatically format this field the same as this field. Okay. Any questions about that? My recommendation with formatting is if it's a report that you're going to use a lot and needs to be presented to an external source, that needs to be presentable and clear and concise, it's worth it to take the time to complete these formatting steps. If you do it once in Business Objects, then when you export that report, that formatting gets exported to Excel and to the PDF. So you do it once and then it's done every time. If you wait to do the formatting until Excel when in a program that you're more familiar with, you're going to have to reformat that Excel file every time you refresh the data. Okay. So in certain instances, it's better to do it in Business Objects. All right. Now, I just want to show you how to export a report real quick. Now that we've got the formatting right, if I was to export it, I need to click on the ellipses here and select export. Now, if I was in the reading mode, it would look like an arrow with a line. Okay, so it gets displayed differently depending on the mode that you're in. Make sense? So now when I export this, if I have multiple reports within this workbook, I can check multiple items. I can select PDF, Excel, HTML, text, or CSV. And if I click export, it's going to show up at the top of my screen. And as you can see, the formatting, sorry, the auto recover came up. The formatting is consistent with what we did in our Business Objects report. Okay. Any questions about how to add a field to a report? Okay. All right, this is a basic report. I'm going to open up a different report that's formatted a little differently. And once again, these were the training class reports that I was telling you about. So if you go into custom compliance training class reports, I'm just going to open up some of these. So exercise 2 is the annual emission summary report. And if we open this one, you can see that this one's formatted a little bit differently. This is what's called a crosstab, which means it's got data displayed in columns and headers. Once again, we are in the reading mode. So to look at how this is made, we're going to need to go to design mode. However, if I was to hit refresh, once again, it's going to ask me for the prompts to edit the data to my installation. We don't need to refresh the data for it now. But this one has a little bit more functionality. As you can see, there are some totals. There are some merged cells. So I'm going to show you how to do some of that functionality. All right. So when you first come into Business Objects, your report is going to be in just the normal spreadsheet table format that we saw. To get it into a crosstab format, you need to make sure you're on the display panel. And then you want to click the turn into. Now, this is where you have all the different options to include graphs. As you can see, there's many different types of graphs available in here. However, most commonly, you're going to be working with the table format here, where you have the choice of a vertical table, a horizontal table, a cross table, or a form table. So as I said, this one you can see cross table is grayed out because it is displayed in a cross table. Now, once I do that, it's going to display rows and columns. And once again, I can just click and drag and have them displayed in the order that I desire. Okay. Now, what this one utilizes additionally is something called a break. Okay. So if you come up here to this broken bar, that's the break button. If I was to click on this, it'll display the break panel. So you can see that I have a break on source category, and that's how I was able to have the source category merged across all the processes that were included in it, and then have the data separated by a line by source category. Okay. So if I was to delete this break, you can see that the data would just be displayed like this. Now, to put a break in, once again, I go to the menu and I can add it on rows or columns. In this case, I want to add a break and I click the drop down and then I can select one or many fields. In this instance, I want to select source category and click OK. Now, when I do that, it's going to add all of these lines in here and display it as the first value. To get it, edit the settings, I can come up here to the settings. And from here, I can choose whether or not I want to break footer, which is the extra line in there, whether I want to apply the sort, and whether I want to display all, first, merge, or repeat on new page. For this particular report, we had merge set out. And then you can also adjust the page layout so that each break shows up on a new page. So if you have a source category report that has a lot of data and you want it broken up by page, you can do that here. Once I click OK, then it's going to put it back in the format that I had. Okay. So once again, this is the break functionality, and it can change the way that your data is sorted and segregated. So that's a common functionality that people use. The next one is if I wanted to add a total to this, as you can see, I have a sum line here. But if I had data that I wanted to sum up, in order to do that, I can right click and say footer calculation. Now, underneath this, there's a lot of different options. You can have it count, you can find the min, you can find the max, sum, average, or percentage. So for this one, I'm going to uncheck sum because it was already there. And then I'm going to right click again. Wait, where did it go? And click footer calculation, sum. And then it's going to give you the option of whether you want to do rows and columns or just columns and rows. For this one, I'll do both just to show you how it would be displayed. It's going to add a total at the bottom, and it's going to add a total at the side when you select both of them. Okay. Any questions about how to do a sum or an average? Okay. All right, so that was another one of the functionalities I want to show you. Now, Monty, I'm going to talk to your reports. I know that you have state reports where the numbers have to be in a specific format, okay? I believe scientific format, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So that is an important thing. I know a lot of other installations, they have to report to a certain number of sig figs. Instead of trying to export it and then fix it each time, you can format the number here. So if I go to format display, it's going to pull up a menu where I can tell you the format. This works for dates too, if dates have to be in a certain format. But for this one, there's all of these default number formats. So you can see you've got scientific notation. I can also add a custom format. So let's say that I need 3 decimal places after the decimal, or 3 digits after the decimal place. I can do that by putting this here. I can say undefined is a dash, and then I can say okay. So then now I have this custom format that's available. So anytime I need to format a number in this report, this is available to me. I can click apply and then okay. Now you can see anytime it's undefined, it's a dash, and I have 3 digits after the decimal place for all of the numbers that I'm reporting. Okay, any questions about that? So it's a right-click format display. Okay. All right. Now, a couple of things that we're going to talk about that this report shows is labels. When I do a crosstab, this field is not going to be populated. So here, I'll just show you real quick. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new report by creating a new query so that you can see what would happen if we came into this normally. That's the other thing is if I have this report, and right now I'm filtering just to criteria pollutants. If I wanted this same report, but I wanted it for something other than criteria pollutants, I can click the down arrow and I can duplicate my query. And let's say that we want this to be for greenhouse gases, okay? So to do that, I'm going to want to clear out that value. Now, one of the things that causes people the most problems is they think they know what the database is looking for. So they think that they know how the source category is populated or something like that. It is best not to guess because this query is going to do exactly what you tell it to do, not what you want it to do. Does that make sense? So uppercase matters, lowercase matters, and then any type of syntax. So the database may store an active process as ACT, or it may say yes, it may say Y. And so you don't really know. So it's always a best practice to click on the hamburger menu and select a value from list. Cannot stress this enough. If you have a report that you don't get data from, it is 100% your filters. So in order to do that, you have to make sure that you are looking at the right data. So here we're going to pick, I know I'm seeing GHG somewhere there. We're going to say GHG and click OK. And then if I click run, it's going to give me an option to insert a table in a new report, insert a table into the current report, or include the objects without generating a report. I want the first choice, so I'm going to click OK. Now, this is a perfect example. Does anybody know where I went wrong? Why did I not get data? And this is kind of what Monty was talking about. If I was to refresh this, I'm looking at Arnold annual emissions, but the data I have access to right now is Goodfellow. So don't trust the values that are in these prompts for canned reports. So I need to clear it out, and then I need to make sure that I'm looking at the right data. So let's find what I think is a good calculation name. There we go. Annual stationary, and we'll pick a newer year than 2019. Okay, so Now you can see it put it into the format that we wanted, or that it defaults to. Once again, to change that, I click on the display panel, turn into cross table. And then from there, I can highlight the table. And I can click and drag fields as I need to. So bear with me for 1 second while I get this in the right order. Okay, so what I wanted to show you was that these column headers did not exist. So in order to add those so that it looks like this, I can simply click in this field and it's going to give me a formula bar. Now within this formula bar, I have a lot of possibilities of things that I can do. For this particular one, I just want to type process name. Use the validate formula checkbox, and then the process name is displayed. Oops. And I can do that for any blank cell that exists to just type in a formula. Okay. Now, the other thing that you can do in this formula bar is you can add custom fields. So if I was to come up here and add a blank cell, there's these canned reports here with last refresh date, prompt, document name, page number that I can use. And if I was to just do blank cell, I can just click and put it anywhere that I want, and then I can tell it what I want in there. Now, the most important button in business objects is the undo button. So I'm going to undo that. And I want to show you this particular field. So what I did was I took the field of last refresh date and I put it in a box here. But that was just going to display a date. And I wanted to add some syntax in front of it. So if you want to add some functionality or a title to a particular field, when you use the equal sign, anything you put inside quotations is going to be seen as text, and it'll be canned and it'll display every time, no matter what. And then it will add a plus sign, and then it'll take the logic from the predefined field there. So every time I run this, it will say last run date, and then it'll display the date that it was last executed. Okay, I highly recommend this on your reports, especially if you have multiple people coming in and looking at the data. That way you know how old the data is and if the data is the most recent data pull, or it may remind you that you need to refresh all of the data. Okay. I use the quotations and the plus as well here. And like I said, we go into this in much more depth in the training class, but I wanted you to understand how to read it. So right now it's showing in red because it's pulling the report name, which is this up here, plus whatever value is the APIMS facility and the emission start date. So depending on the data that you run, it will change what the title of your report looks like. Okay. I don't know how many of you have seen some of this function and this is a refresher, and how many of you have not. I know I've had some people in class, but like I said, that is all more in depth in the training class. So if you have a desire to do that, you know, either reach out to me, or I highly encourage you come to the longer class where we can actually get more practice showing it. But things like this are possible. All right. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can add a filter to your page. So if you have a large amount of data and you want to be able to filter it down to a certain thing for easier viewing, you can click on the Manage Filters button and add a new input control. And from here, you can select an object that's in the query. Okay, so let's say I only want to look at a particular source category at a time. I can select source category, I can say whether I want, an entry field, multi-list, list, and if I want, what kind of filter I want on it. So I'm going to click OK. And when I do that, it's going to show up here on the top as a page filter. Now to use this, so if you see any reports that have this, to use this, you can click on it and then you can uncheck or check the values that you want to look at. Okay, so let's say that I just want to look at blasting and degreasing. I can click OK. When I do that, it's going to filter the results in the report to match whatever I have up here. Okay, and then I can reset it anytime I want. So I know there's a lot of the canned reports out there that have these types of filters. It can be very useful, especially on the bigger reports. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about is sorting. So this particular report is just sorted across here. To determine how I have it sorted, I can come up here to the report element data, and there is a sort panel. So as you can see here, I've got the CAS number sorted ascending. So I can add another sort based on chemical name, or I can edit this. So if I click on these ellipses, I can sort it descending or ascending according to this bar, or I can create a custom sort where from here I can move the values up. So if I want CO sorted first and I want lead moved up, I can do that, and it'll keep that sort every time I run the report. Okay. So you can add sorts to any of the fields that are available using the sort panel. So this is going to be how your fields are done. These are going to be any filters that you have. So you saw that we did the filter up here. It's displayed in the filter panel. You have the sort panel. You have a ranking panel, which honestly don't use very much. So we won't go into that. And then you've got your break panel, and that's what gives you the formatting here. Okay. Any questions about navigating this sidebar? Okay. Another function that is done a lot is a section. So if I wanted this table, but I wanted each source category to be its own table, I can make it a section. So the section button is up here. I can insert a section, or I can right click and say set as section. Now, when I do that, it's going to pull that field out of the table and put it up top as a label. And then that table would be duplicated for each change in that field. Okay. So that is just a display preference that you can do. It can be very useful when you have tables that need to be segregated that way for particular reports or ease of viewing. Okay. All right. Now, the next report I want to show you is going to have one of the things that I think causes people a lot of problems in business objects. And I'm going to show you a quick way to overcome that issue. So any questions on the functionality we went over in this report before I move on? Okay. All right, so I am going to open exercise 3. All right, so this is a paint booth usage report. And in this report, we've got all of the usage, and it's sorted by each month and with the total usage. Now, one thing that we've got here that's pretty common is I have the alpha month displayed across the top. Now, any of you that have tried to write this report, may have run into this issue. When you pull in the date format that is an alpha instead of a numeric, it's going to sort it with it being April, then August. So it's going to sort it alphabetically. And so when you display your data, it does not show in a logical manner. And so I'm going to show you how we can overcome that. So if I was to remove this field here, and I just pulled in the start issue month and the report year, you can see that it is displaying April, then August, then December, right? Has anybody run into this issue? Okay. All right. Well, hopefully I can help you solve it if you haven't already solved it. So the way that I do this is over here, when I look at my query, I want to make sure that I have a date that is an actual date format. Okay. And I want to add it to my query. And I want to put it above my month. And once I do that, it's going to sort in the order that the fields are displayed, right? So it's going to sort by report year and then date. But I don't want to look at this, and I don't want January to be repeated. Okay, so business objects has some functions. If you click the edit button here, there is a formula editor, and you don't need to be especially tech savvy to do it. A lot of the functions are predefined here, and you can use the search, but I know I want to go to the date time. And if I scroll down here, there is this function called month number of year, which returns the month. You hover over it, returns the month number in a date. Okay, so if I click on that and double click it, it's going to pull it over here. And I just need to make sure that the field I'm looking at is within the parentheses. Okay. Oh, I clicked on the wrong field. Sorry. I need to click on this field. So let's do that again. If I put my mouse above here and I go to the date and time and click month number of year, and then make sure that it's within the parentheses. Click OK. Then it's going to go and look at the number and put it to just a single value. But once again, I don't want this value or this field displayed. And so there's a function that I can do here where I can click on this and I can hide that field. So by doing that, it will still display the sort, but not display the field. I don't know why it did that. Okay, it did not like me on that time. Trust me, this works. Let me do this real quick again. Oh, sorry. I'm typing too quick because people are watching me. Oh, that's what I did. All right, now I should be able to hide it. Well, anyway, it's not working for me today. But it displays in the way that you saw earlier when you can hide the field. I'm not sure why it's holding on to that. It's probably because this is a canned report that I don't necessarily have access to. So if I go back to the undo button, I can show you that it does indeed work without showing that blank. Oh, I know why. Okay. It's because there was a break on the data. So there was a break here. So if I was to come back in here and add that again. I need to include it in the break. Okay, and then I can hide. I keep putting it on the wrong field, don't I? I keep clicking on the wrong field. I'm sorry. It's when people watch me that I end up clicking too fast. Okay, so I've got the start issue date month. Okay, it's this field that I want to edit. Now, normally when you're doing this, you don't have a break already on that field, but since this was a done report, if I was to come over here, I need to make sure that it wasn't part of a break. And that's why that was causing me problems before. So if I am here and I hide this field, then it usually should not add an extra row there. There you go. It was because I summed it on the end there. And so now it displays in the way that I want with all of my fields like this. And it maintains the sort that I wanted, but doesn't display the way that I'm getting to the sort. Okay, so that's, you can hide or show that. You can also edit formulas for fields to add different logic to them. Okay. Sorry, that was a little bit convoluted. Does anybody have any questions about that or need to see that from scratch? The date thing is
just illustrated why you need to take the whole course.
yeah. Well, I got to clicking too quickly and wasn't paying attention to the field I was clicking on was really my big problem because I kept trying to do a date function on something that's not a date. But I can hide and show any fields that I want in my report. So know that that functionality is there. But when you're dealing with a start issue date month, you need to make sure that you have some sort of date sort on there. The alternative is that you can do the custom sort functionality. So I know this is something that frustrates a lot of people. The good news is once you set it once, every time you refresh the report, it's done. So if you get to a point where you're stuck with the dates, don't let it be something that you don't try and overcome. Okay. But yes, there is a lot of repetition. Today, I'm trying to just illustrate how to navigate around. The most important part is to know these different panels and what you need to do there. There's one more thing that I wanted to show that we'll get into that talks about formatting rules. So if I was to come into this report, this is a report that shows you your engine runtimes and then also lets you know if you're compliant or not. So if I come to design, they're just like in Excel, you can apply formatting rules to a particular field. And to do that, underneath the Analyze, there is a Formatting Rules tab where you can add a conditional formatting. So we're just going to edit because I've already got these canned, where you can say that I want to know if this field is equal to a particular value. You can say if I want it to know if it's equal to some other object or variable. I can change the format to be whatever I want. It's very similar to what's in Excel, but this is the menu where you can add a conditional formatting. So what this is doing is basically saying if it's equal to compliant, then it's green. If it's equal to non-compliant, then it's red. And so every time I run this report, it's going to automatically do the analysis according to what I've specified and color code it. Now, the way that it's coming up with the compliant or the non-compliant is done through a variable. Has anybody made use of the variable function? Okay, I'm just gonna say a few words about it, but like I said, like Monty highlighted, the variable is more for the class. I can basically create any field that I want using the variable. And once I've done that, I can pull it into my report. So you can see this one, just take it with a grain of salt. This is a lot of if-then analysis to say whether or not it's compliant. So these things can be done. They're done through the variable. A variable can also be just as simple as I need a field to say compliant, right? So if you have things that maybe aren't in APIMS that need to be included in a regulatory report, they can be done. It's done through the variable functionality. Okay. Now, I went through a lot of different functionality pretty fast. I wanted to just kind of show you the navigation of where to go to do some of these things. But with that being said, the people on this call, I'm assuming, have used some of the business objects reports that are out there and have probably wanted to make changes. Is there any particular report or any particular function that you wanted me to address and go over? Yes, Liz.
Hi, I'm out at Kirtland, and we have a bunch of canned reports that we use, and we have some rolling total reports where it shows pounds. And I'm wondering how we can use this system to maybe add some filters or do some queries. I'm not sure, but all the light bulbs are going off for how I can do the pounds to tons conversion within the reporting system instead of having to do it in Excel.
Yes, we can do that. I would love to show that right now. That is something that I didn't have my list to show you, but I need to. So which report is it? And I'll just do it real quick.
If you go, I have them all flagged as favorites.
Okay.
If you go into, I think it's monthly reports.
Monthly reports. Okay, let's see.
And then, Kirtland Surf, rolling total emissions, Kirtland Surf.
Okay.
That's one.
All right, so this is excellent. This shows something. The sky's the limit with business objects, so you can do a lot of different things. So you've got your monthly pounds, and these are emissions, right? So I'm gonna go into design mode. I'm not sure if it's gonna let me save this, but I'll show you how to do it. So this is the value that I want to change to tons, right?
Right.
So I come up to the formula bar. And in order to convert pounds to tons, I'm going to divide by 2,000. So just divide 2,000 and hit the checkbox. And now everything in this column for all your different dates is going to display in tons.
Wow, okay.
And then for rolling pounds, same thing. I can just do divided by 2,000. And now my report is in tons.
Wow. Yay, that's so exciting.
Yes.
On that same report, well, I have another question for it. Is there a way to add a new row in that report where it shows the total HAPs? So all those are individual HAPs by a certain equipment ID, but is there a way to add a new row in just summing up all of the HAPs instead of having to do it in Excel?
Yes, there is. So you've got a couple different pollutants here, right? So do you want to keep the individual HAPs and then have a total of HAPs at like at the bottom of it?
Yeah.
Okay. So in order to do that, you need to utilize the pollutant category code. So I can see that you've got it as an available thing for this report. By the way, I saved this as a different name for adjusted, so you still have your old report.
Okay, thanks.
I'm not completely messing you up, but the way I would do it is I would pull pollutant category code in here.
Okay.
Okay. And then do you want it totaled for the whole report?
No,
you've
not
got-
the whole report, because we just have two different paint booths. So
Do you want it
there's
by
two.
each equipment ID?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So the way I would do this is through a break. Okay, so as you can see now, we've got the different ones mixed in here. So we've got criteria pollutant at the top and then HAP down at the bottom.
Yeah.
So once again, we come over here to break, and I would add a break on the rows. And I would want it to break on equipment ID. And actually, I'm going to do equipment ID. And then I'm going to add another break on pollutant category code. And when I do that, then it's going to segregate out for each type of pollutant. And if I insert a sum on the rows, did I do that wrong? I always get that confused. Hold on. Let me undo that. Okay, so hold on. Sometimes it works better to do the sum before the break. So if I right click and do footer calculation sum, I do want rows, I believe. Then I should have something at the bottom of my report. Anyway, then I do my break. Oops. See, now because people are watching me. Oh, I do want it on I did the footer calculation wrong. We're just gonna do it on both of them real quick. Because I think I'm getting my rows and my columns confused because for some reason, that's the way my brain works. So sometimes I just do both and then delete the one I don't want.
Mm.
So there, now it's adding it at the break. Now, if I add another break based on pollutant category code, a lot of times it'll just add a sum already in there. But for some reason it's not. So the way that you would do it is, all right, now we're gonna just say all of it. So there you've got your criteria pollutant. Now this one doesn't make any sense. So unfortunately, that kind of, defeats the purpose, but you can get a total HAP here. The other way that you can do it that I've done in some reports where you write a variable where if the pollutant category is HAP, then sum the emissions, and I can help you do that. That one's a little bit more advanced than doing it this way, but like I said, it's something that we can do once, and then you don't have to do it again each time you export the data or refresh the data.
Yay.
So I'll make a note. I can make this a little prettier, but I'd have to do a variable.
Okay.
So that was the thing I showed you up here where I, kind of tell it some logic. If this, then I want you to do that. Otherwise, do this.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Does anybody else have any report questions that they've run into? Any functions they wanted to see again? Any questions about the canned reports? I can go in more depth in those. I wasn't sure how much time we would have going through some of this.
Julie, just make sure you change out the units on the titles
Yeah,
for the
Yeah.
previous stuff. So it's on pounds versus tons.
I think when I did some of the stuff I did, it wiped out her label anyway.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. Nope, yep, I'm cognizant. That was the other thing. Actually, this is Frank, this is special for you.
Right.
When you do this, these are
Right.
just numbers, and I can tell you a story. I gave Frank a report one time, and he said, "That's great, but what are the units of measure?" And a lot of times it's not easy to show the unit of measure. So right before I send it to him, the last thing I do on my report is I right click and oops, here, and I right click and I say insert row below. And when I do that, it will give me a blank row up here where I can click up here and then say tons. So I manually add the unit of measure to all of my reports. So just remember, you can right click and insert blank rows if you need to for things like tons, or up here, you can say report name, rolling total emissions plus in tons. And that's, oops, that's the syntax. That's the syntax I was talking about. So then anytime I run it, it will add the unit of measure as I need it. Okay. So I made a mess of this report, so I'll go clean up your real report for you. It won't take me very long. I'll get you your total HAPs.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, the key with these reports is there's a lot of things that can be done. And a lot of times people get into business objects and they don't know where to click. They come in here and they're like, oh, well, I don't see anything. So right now, what you're seeing on the screen is very common, where they're like, I know the button should be under this data element thing, but I don't see any of my options. And some of that's because you have to tell it what you're formatting. So I was highlighted on this cell. So it's only going to let me do things to that cell. Whereas if I hit the report, that's where I'm then going to start seeing all of the functionality here. So a lot of times the navigation isn't initially intuitive. The more time you spend in it, the smoother it will be, unless you're me on today's day where my computer crashes and I can't get my fields to highlight correctly. But once you get used to the navigation, the sky's the limit for what you can do. And like I said, Liz, for this report, now that we've got it in tons, you're going to save so much time on a monthly basis because that's extra work you won't have to do in Excel each time. All right, did anybody have any other questions about any of the QA/QC reports that are out there? How to refresh a report? Any base reports that they have? You're a quiet group. I thought for sure people would have lots of problem reports that they wanted help with. That's why I scheduled it for 2 hours. I knew I didn't have, well, I mean, I could talk for 3 days about this, but Liz, yes.
I have another report.
Oh, good.
So it's this also in that folder, but it's the chem report, Kirtland chem. Rolling total emissions, Kirtland chem. So it's just above.
Oh, Chem, okay.
Yeah, the one we were just working with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same kind of thing that we were working with on the SURF report, where the report shows pounds, but we're required to report by tons, and then having a row to summarize the total HAPs.
Mm-hmm. Can I show you something? So this is basically the exact same report as the other one, right?
Yeah, it's just one process ID instead of the two.
When
like
you
the other
were
report.
When you were doing this, did you save as and make changes, or did you write each report separately?
Oh, no, I didn't write these reports. I'm writing someone's coattails of
Okay.
a previous contractor.
So
Heads contractor.
an easy way to do this is, let's say I build the report I want. So I'm going to fix your surf report, right? And then instead of just having it each writing a new report, there's a couple things you can do. One is you can duplicate the report and change the filter, or you can make this a prompt so that it's going to ask you which source category. So you can just refresh the same report and change it between chem and surf.
Okay.
Or you can do this, include both of them, and it's change by a semicolon, then run. Just gonna run this real quick. That saves you a lot of time in formatting. So you get the report you like. And then I can duplicate the report. And on this report, I can, on the filter, I can change it to, I can put source category up here. Why is this doing this to me? It's because there's a filter up here already. But this same report, I should be able to, oh, it's because I don't have any data, because I'm in Goodfellow.
No.
But anyway, you can add a filter up here and have one report show chem and one report show surf.
Okay.
So if you
That's
just click
really
and
cool.
yeah, that way you don't have to redo all of the formatting or anything. You just are telling it, hey, this time I want you to apply this filter.
Okay. So cool.
Yeah, and this has nested filters. So for those of you that don't know, it's saying I want, cast number to be this or a criteria pollutant, or I want it to be both of these or a HAP, right? So it's got nested filters and then it's applying all these others.
Wow.
So this is a fairly complex-ish report to write in regards to the filters.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can get that fixed easy.
Okay. Thanks.
Hey, Julie, is New Mexico one of those one of those states that have its own toxic list?
I believe so. Let me double check that. Oh,
Just want to make sure we also are
yes.
capturing the list that the state.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. There's 28 of them, so there's a good chance they are.
Yeah.
Let me just pull up a chemical and see. I'm just going to pull up the pick list. Yeah, New Mexico is.
Okay.
Yeah. So in your reports and your reporting, Liz, you probably want to make sure that you're calculating for and reporting any chemicals that have a pollutant category code of NMTAP.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that, this might be more of a in the weeds question, but the air jurisdiction I'm in, I'm thinking it's definitely separate from New Mexico Environment Department. We're with the city of Albuquerque, and I'm thinking it might be a different list. Just thinking of air toxics, they have some. I wonder if there might be a separate list.
I can double check that for you.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. And this is, I know this was a business objects class. For those of you that joined, I appreciate your time. Sorry for any of the hiccups. This is the first time we've done this class. Hopefully we'll do some more where we can just show you some of the basic functionality as a refresher. But since you do have, the knowledge base here, I'm open to fielding any questions that you may have about reports or business objects, or even just APIMS in general. So you have the resource available, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions, whether they're related to business objects or not.